Rioting has long been recognised as a form of political protest, a violent expression of dissatisfaction, whether ideological or tribal. But in this episode we look at leisure riots, the riots that happen when people find their enjoyment, lifestyle and pleasure under threat. We watch as toffs turn nasty when they fight for their right to kill foxes, teenagers defend their right to joyride by lobbing petrol bombs, music fans get upset when the music finishes, and shoppers go crazy at the great Ikea sofa riot.
I feel I was fighting for my own freedom to do what I want, when I want, and why should I be stopped from doing it?
It's war now, it's a civil war!
When it comes to fox hunting, it's very easy to just think of the fox hunters as big, fat, overfed bullies in red coats, riding around the country chasing a little red dog that likes eating chickens. So for sheer surprise, you've got to hand it to the pro-hunting lobby when they stormed Parliament Square in 2004 and had an almighty ruck with the authorities. On September the 15th, 2004, 20,000 passionate pro-hunters descended on Westminster to protest against the ban on fox hunting, which was being debated in Parliament that very day. Barnaby Elliott Boot is proud to have been there, standing up for his right to hunt.
Liking fox hunting for me is in the genes, it seems like. I mean, maybe it's from having grown up around it. You know, there's just something very primal about it, something very enjoyable about the chase and the kill. Those of the lower end towards the middle classes are fans of ball games, are fans of football, and they use that as their release from reality. For people like myself who are into fox hunting, we look forward to the hunt. It's our release from reality. And so why shouldn't we be allowed to do that? It's tradition.
The demonstration started out as a fun occasion. Everyone was having a jolly good time, and by lunchtime things were in full swing. But thankfully, some fillies stayed covered up.
When I arrived, it was joyous. You know, we all came as one, and people were dressed up and had their slogans. You know, a friend of mine was dressed up as a fox, and it was very funny, you know, kind of ironic. So there was a fox and people were pretending to shoot him. And it was just, you know, it's like comedy.
But not everybody saw the funny side of fox hunting. Amongst the crowd were hunt saboteurs who were taunting the toffs and country folk.
You know, it started as anti-fox hunting stuff and then became a lot more personal about the way we looked, about the way we dressed and the way we acted. And I just thought it was, you know, disgusting. The coin came across me. I couldn't tell where it was from, but it came very clearly across my face. And that kind of did rile me a bit. And, you know, I have to admit that I was definitely giving it back at that point because, you know, why shouldn't I stick up for myself? I'm allowed to dress how I want, I'm allowed to look how I want, and nobody's different.
But name-calling and coin-throwing were the least of Barnaby's worries. Things were going to get a lot worse. The authorities had received a tip-off that the pro-hunters were going to stage some kind of attack on Parliament. And so the police were desperate to keep the crowd away from the House of Commons. For the toffs, this was a whole new side of the police they were seeing, and they didn't like it.
The police were definitely kind of very uptight about something, and it was almost as if they were expecting something to occur.
What seems to be happening is people are surging through, trying to get past the police cordon, which doesn't really feel as though it's very possible at all.
The protesters were intent on getting as close to Parliament as possible and were refusing to back down. In a nearby pub, a hardcore were plotting to go out and attack the police, even going as far to invite a camera crew to join in with them.
So we're standing in this pub, we've got the kit stashed away in the corner, so we're standing there having a drink, and this fella comes over to us and goes, right, next time we all go outside, we're going to lob the bangers and have a go at the police. You up for it? And we sort of said, yeah, we'll be out there. Sort of looking at each other, thinking, right, okay, you know, a bit of a lead here. So, of course, you know, a few minutes later, we casually picked up the kit, gone out another door, and seen these guys come out of the pub. All of a sudden they're throwing fireworks, they're scuffling with the police, it's all gone really horrible.
With the protesters now attacking the police, it was game on. There was only one way this was going to go.
As you can see, there are some more scuffles going up down here. There's a bit of a surge going on. As you can see, it's breaking out into a full-scale. I'm just trying to stabilise the camera for my cameraman. We're being pushed into the police cordon as well. As you can see, it is fairly chaotic down here. The police are urging anybody not involved to move back. But are you all right, Kurt?
It's war now, it's a civil war!
The police weren't used to Middle Englanders behaving badly, and the crowd was shocked by the liberal use of police truncheons.
The police, you know, totally treated all of us like outsiders and were determined, I think, to get us out of what felt like their city as quickly as possible. I know a lot of people are very upset by it. I mean, I wasn't upset, it was more like anger for me.
If you go to the barrier, they pull out these truncheons and slice through your skull. They did about 10 while I was there.
A friend of mine who was just at the protest and he got kind of caught in a police blockade and actually got hit by a baton across the knees and he was, you know, very upset.
What happened to you, sir?
I got smacked with a truncheon.
Were you pushing against the front?
No, we were there, but the people behind us were pushing. Obviously, we were getting nudged. Bloodthirsty they are! Bloodthirsty!
Can you let this man have his say?
Several people were shouting, leave us, we're being pushed, which we were being pushed, we weren't pushing.
Was this organised in any way at all?
Not to riot, no. I mean, this was a peaceful demonstration.
Freedom! 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 Freedom!
It wasn't just protesters that were being hurt, there were injuries on both sides.
Get a camera out, Spike! I don't think anybody wanted this to happen. Nobody wanted this.
Who is it who's doing it, do you reckon?
I have no idea, but if you push people far enough, this is what will happen.
Meanwhile, inside the House of Commons, MPs continued to debate the hunting ban. The Speaker of the House came outside to see what was happening, and shortly after 3:30, his worst nightmare came true.
MPs were debating the motion to cut short the discussion of the bill when 5 protesters appeared from behind the Speaker's chair, having avoided the footmen and the police.
5 protesters, led by Otis Ferry, son of Roxy Music's Brian Ferry, had masqueraded as workmen to breach security and burst into the Commons chamber. The Assistant Sergeant-at-Arms, in silk stockings and breeches, rushed forward to tackle the imposters.
I thought fair play to them, let them do it and let them make a story and get on the news and show our cause in a light that will make people sit up and take notice.
This was one riot that didn't actually achieve anything. MPs went on to ban hunting with dogs by a majority of almost 200 votes.
People don't expect people of the upper class to be violent and to get involved in violence. And for me, it just proves that when something is very important to people, that they will go to any lengths to show how important it is and to show what they believe in. And that's just what we did that day.
Coming up in part 2, Riding Riot, musical riots, and furniture riots. Coming up, more leisure rioting as council estate kids defend their right to joyride. Portaloos go over at a music festival, and shoppers go crazy in a sofa riot at Ikea. You spend all week in the flats, knocking off school, smoking dope and playing computer games. So what do you do for relaxation? Come the weekend, you nick a load of cars and go joyriding. But the problem is it's illegal, so the police show up. And then when you've got arrest-hungry coppers and disaffected youth, you've got the perfect recipe for a riot.
It didn't matter that there was a policeman on virtually every street corner. The crowd had waited all night for a display of crazy driving, and they were not disappointed. Applause from the 100 or so spectators was followed by the arrival of the riot squad.
In the mid-90s, joyriding riots sprang up all across the country.
Tonight on the streets of Newcastle, hundreds of youths were again in the area, again seemingly mindless acts of destruction and arson.
But the worst was in Luton in 1995. Marsh Farm in Luton houses over 9,000 people. And in recent years, the unemployment rate on the estate has been around 7 times the national average.
There's no community centre, there's no parks, there's no swings, there's no basketball court, there's no nothing for anyone out here. If you've got nothing to do, you're going to cause trouble.
The trouble started on this estate when the police arrested an alleged 13-year-old joyrider who'd escaped from a detention centre. His mates retaliated by phoning in an emergency call and then attacking the police when they arrived. John Jefferson used to live on the estate and still makes a 50-mile round trip to come and drink in the local pub.
A WKD Blue and half a Foster's.
John was a local councillor at the time, and at first he thought he'd managed to head off any serious trouble by phoning the police.
That night I rang the divisional commander and said, look, it's dying down over here. Give it an hour, everybody's going to be on home. Yeah, I promise you, John, nothing's going to happen within an hour. 30 minutes later, there's like 200 old Bill. I saw outside the middle lot of high-rise blocks a bunch of 14 and 15-year-old kids singing in unison One Love by Bob Marley, and they were greeted by 20 police officers charging into them with batons.
Police heavy-handedness had elevated the riot to a whole new level. What had been minor scuffles that would have probably petered out within hours turned into a rampage that would last for 3 days. By midnight on the second night, there was a gang of over 100 kids running riot. This part of the road in and out of the estate was blocked with burning vehicles, and behind the barricade, the kids were chucking petrol bombs and rocks at the police. Back in the estate, all 3 of the schools were on fire. When a fire engine showed up to put the fires out, even that was attacked by the young arsonists.
Last night there was an expectation, after the trouble the night before, there was an expectation that people wanted something to go on. That was a point of excitement. The people here on the estate don't get much change to their lives.
By the 3rd night of rioting, the Marsh Farm estate had become a beacon for disaffected youth from across the region. There were even signposts appearing on the motorway directing people to the riot. After 72 hours of rioting, the mob, which included kids as young as 12, had destroyed loads of cars, looted a supermarket, and even torched 3 schools. So let's get this clear. What happened here in Luton seems to bear little resemblance to the politically motivated riots of Handsworth, Toxteth or Brixton. And if you want proof that this was a leisure riot, after a couple of days of being hard at it with the police, they just jacked it in and went to a rave. John Jefferson was one of the locals who helped to organise the rave.
But it was decided that probably that was the easiest way to bring peace back to the streets. And all that was, instead of like throwing petrol bombs and brick, go and dance for 10 hours and all that and burn your energy off that way. And there's no doubt about it, it worked.
Sociologists argued that it was the breakdown in the family and the lack of job prospects and cash in the community that were the cause. But I don't know. I think a lot of people get involved in the riots just because it seems so fucking exciting. And this was certainly the case at the Leeds Festival riot of 2002. Temple Newsham in the summer of 2002 hosted the Carling Leeds Music Festival. And on the Sunday night after the festival had finished, a big crowd went fucking nuts. Mike Eccleshall was there to photograph the event. He was saying his goodbyes on the final night when he noticed the first signs of trouble.
On the skyline we could see a couple of police helicopters circling and kind of big flames, literally, and smoke coming out of the skyline.
Unhappy that the music was over and it was time for bed, 500 teenage fans chose one of the festival campsites which was unpatrolled by stewards to go on the rampage.
What do you do if you take all the responsible supervisory type people out of an entire huge field of drunk rock fans who are trying to prove to all their mates and all the other girls how much rocker they are than anywhere else?
Realising that serious trouble was afoot, the riot police arrived and then left.
Turned out that they'd been there, that they'd held their lines, realised that there was more people than they could really deal with, and so just got in their vans and went home and watched the rest of it from the police helicopter with a searchlight.
With the police out of the way, the rioters turned their anger on the most universally loathed aspect of festival life, the by now stinking portaloos.
Kind of incredible heat, awful smells of, you imagine, 4-day-old portaloos on fire, and then the flames literally setting light to the metal fences around them, and then kids running through them, chucking tents and all sorts of gas canisters onto these fires, and generally just lawlessness. A rock festival version of Lord of the Flies or something like this. Nobody thinking about anything. It was quite an apocalyptic scene.
The Leeds Festival riot has got to be near the top of the pointless riot stakes, but it's not quite the winner. Recent British history is packed full of riots which have been used to protest against real social injustice, whether it be the unfairness of the poll tax, perceived police racism in Brixton, or poor prison conditions. And in 2005, we were shocked to discover there'd actually been a riot at the opening of an Ikea store. In February 2005, thousands of bargain hunters gathered for the midnight opening of Ikea's newest and largest UK store in Edmonton, North London. Adverts for special offers had attracted hordes of people, including Emma and Jerry, whose eyes were firmly set on a £45 leather sofa.
Nobody else was sleeping on a makeshift camper bed, do you know what I mean? And it was like, we needed that sofa, I felt.
Even Ikea's own tongue-in-cheek publicity seemed to have tempted fate.
We were joking, there was this big queue of traffic in front of us. Well, yeah, that's probably the Ikea traffic. It was the Ikea traffic, it was no joke.
As furniture fever took hold, people began abandoning their cars on London's North Circular Road.
I decided to get out the van because everybody else was. There's like hordes of people and they're all running. So, I mean, me being a little bit of a sheep at times, start running as well. So running along, thinking, I'm going to get the sofa. Same time on the phone to Jerry, feeling like a little bit like Challenge Annika.
The doors weren't due to open until midnight, but by 8 o'clock, thousands were already waiting to get in.
There seemed to be an awful lot of yobs and gangs there. They looked really dodgy. And they're all sort of banging on the Ikea doors.
It was mayhem, you were saying on the phone. You thought it was, you thought things were about to kick off.
This was the scene at 1 minute past midnight as more than 6,000 shoppers surged forward to get inside Ikea. Chuck out the chintz and come and chin each other at the checkouts. Come on down to Britain's first furniture riot.
You can see almost like the wave in the crowd where it pushes, and it was just pushing back and forth. The security guards right at the front were not holding everybody back. Yeah, there's people climbing up the loading bay. And at that point, I have to admit, I was like thinking, now, shall I follow suit and try and get into the loading bay, or shall I just watch?
It was mayhem. Some people were climbing on top of the boxes of sofas and refusing to budge. Others were collapsing from heat stroke. Security guards were having to break up full-scale fistfights with punters armed with the little wooden hammers you're supposed to put the furniture together with. In the midst of all this, someone got stabbed. This is Ikea we're talking about.
Some of the scenes were pushing and shoving, babies crying, people losing their shoes, barriers going down, people trampling over the barriers, not being able to see where you're going because it's so dark, obviously.
There were fights even starting in the queues where people have been waiting so many hours. The security just could not control it.
We normally have 5 security guards outside, and we had between 45 and 50 right round our building, etc. And it still wasn't enough, mainly because of this breaking of the queue, which then came from every angle possible in order to get into the store.
Ikea's doors were closed after just 42 minutes. Could this have been the most pointless riot Britain has ever seen?
I felt kind of embarrassed that I was there and part of it, trying to get this sofa. I kind of jogged back and met you, and we drove back home, really.
I'm just thinking that was just a waste of a night.
You're kind of just thinking, what is it all about? This is Great Britain.
It does seem mad that for hundreds of years, right up to the poll tax riots, the British public were prepared to mob up and riot to express their anger at genuine social injustice. And that nowadays, they're rioting about the chance to buy a cheap sofa. What the fuck is all that about? Next time on I Predict a Riot, the authorities' provocation leads rioters to take on the police.
Well, more shocking behaviour next as Irish reporter Donald McIntyre heads to the northwest of England to prove that some people from Manchester really are mad for it. We'll be back after the break for a trip into one of Britain's toughest towns.